Good morning, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Good morning and welcome, everyone.
Hey,
Morning.
some familiar faces. Welcome. So good to see you.
Good
Welcome,
morning.
welcome.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Happy Friday. Welcome. So good to
Morning,
see you.
everyone.
Oh, many familiar faces and new faces.
Great.
Shall we, Cynthia?
Okay. Good morning and welcome. My name is Cynthia Chris. I'm a Leadership Development Fellow in the CUNY Office of Faculty Affairs. And I am delighted to welcome you all to Supporting Students' Ethical Use of AI, brought to you by the CUNY Innovative Teaching Academy, or CETA, as we call it. Let me begin by introducing ASL interpreters Amanda Shook and Steve Barnes, and real-time captioner Allison Burns. Thanks to the three of them for supporting today's event. It's also my great pleasure to introduce Mari Watanabe Rose, University Director of Faculty Development and leader of the team developing the series of events on generative AI teaching and learning.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Good morning, everyone. And again, happy Friday. I've known Liz and Karan, today's presenters and Liz, for quite some time. And they're both very kind and extremely brilliant colleagues. And I'm very excited that you're all being here with them. Currently, CETA is collaborating with Karan, Liz, and many other faculty members across CUNY on this faculty fellowship program called Building Bridges of Knowledge, or we call it BBK. Can you move to slide, would that be 4? Thank you. So this is a description of BBK. In this program, a total of 30 faculty fellows and leads from 5 disciplinary areas, humanities, STEM, social sciences, education, and health, create open educational resources to support students' ethical use of AI tools. And Liz and Karan are disciplinary leads of the humanities and STEM teams, respectively. I see many BBK leads and fellows in the audience members. Welcome and thank you for your support too. And Liz and Karan will start this session by introducing their BBK work. So thank you both for being here and sharing your work. Karan and Liz, take it away.
Hi everyone, Karan here. I'm really happy to be given the opportunity to present today, and I have many thanks to say to the whole BBK team and to the CETA team. They're just wonderful people and really brilliant to have as colleagues. We'd like to start by taking an initial Zoom poll. It's already been launched. I'll read it out and maybe you're already reading it as I speak. We just want to take a temperature of the audience today. Which of the following do you perceive as the most important in promoting the ethical use of AI by your students? There are multiple options, and you can choose more than one, I believe. We'll give you a minute or so to just answer the poll, and then we'll get an idea of where we're all at.
Many responses are coming in.
Yes, we're getting a lot of responses coming in very fast. It's excellent.
Wow, almost all of you are responding. That's amazing.
Audience is alive and kicking here.
I'm gonna close it in a few seconds, so please, if you haven't voted, please do it now. Okay, I think I can end the poll now, okay? And I'm gonna share the results so everyone can see.
It's interesting. We have only 3% saying none of the above or other. Most of us have. I also like to point out the I'm not sure and I'm here to gather ideas. I think I think the idea today is really to discuss best practices and strategies. I think Liz would agree with me when I say that we're not here to sort of impose anything or to sort of teach you what to do, right? We're just here to exchange our ideas and essentially form a sort of a community who's thinking about the same things. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for taking the poll. I will move it to Liz before I take it back for the next part. So Liz, please take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for sharing this very rainy Friday with us. Normally, I might be a little bummed about seeing the rainy Friday, but we need the rain so much. I'm kind of cheering the rain on, and what a great opportunity to be inside and be together. I join Karan in saying that I am just delighted to be here and to share a little bit of the AI work that I did over this summer and am working on this fall. But we are definitely not here as absolute experts. We're just sharing what we are currently doing in our classes. So yes, Kate, I'm getting to that. Just 1 second. So we are opening a Padlet. What the structure this morning is going to be that Karan is going to share a little bit about his class and his BBK project. I'm going to share a little bit about my class and my BBK project, and then we're going to open it up for a large group sharing. But we know that sometimes people don't necessarily want to unmute and share on Zoom. So if that's the case, we have set up a Padlet, which will be open now, but we're going to be drawing from this when we come to our discussion and sharing time in just a little bit. So on the Padlet, we would invite you to think about the challenges you are facing with ethical use of AI, concerns that you have, supporting best practices from your field, and any favorite activities. And again, you don't have to go to the Padlet. It's there if you would like to start interacting with one another. But we will come back and use a lot of this when we start sharing our experiences in just a little bit. So I'm going to kick it back to Karan.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Liz. All right, so I will share my my material. Well, I won't share my material exactly, but I'm going to share my ideas and what I did and how I've implemented it this semester in one of my algebra classes. So my focus is on introductory algebra students. So that could mean many things around CUNY, but I think you have an idea when I say introductory algebra. These are usually students who are taking their first entry-level math course in college. It might be their first semester for a lot of them. Their exposure to AI tools is quite limited. So when I was developing the material, I was thinking to myself, how do I create a material that invites students in without requiring a massive background? How do I make sure that my material is relevant to them, and how can they engage meaningfully with the material? So as you could probably guess, the goals for these students are a little different. We want to give them an early exposure to what they're going to face going forward. And I think we can all agree, all of us who are here, who are present here today, can agree that AI is here to stay. We're here to learn more about it and how we can effectively use it in our classes. And we hear it said all the time, students are using ChatGPT to do this, that, the other. There's so much cheating going on. Whereas those are valid concerns, I feel like our focus needs to be on how we can make students meaningfully engage with the material. So when I sat down to do this, I said, okay, I'm going to have some simple directions and some simple language to get them started. And that meant really getting them to go to ChatGPT by giving them like, okay, type in ChatGPT into your browser, right? As simple as that. I wanted to make the bar as low as possible and the entry bar as low as possible. And if students didn't need that instruction, they could just skip it, right? So once they are there, then how do we make sure that they interact meaningfully with ChatGPT? So first of all, we have a conversation during our first meeting about the fact that we're going to use this material. It's that we're going to use this tool. We're not going to treat it like something that's not allowed. We're going to use it and use it as something that's going to help us to learn. during the I'm sorry, my child is in the background. I just need 1 second. I'm sorry. I have a sick child at home. I'm so sorry. I'll be back in 5 seconds.
Okay, while Karan is just checking on something at home, I see that we've already got some questions in the chat. So Jennifer said, my other would include assignments that frustrate the use of AI, responses grounded in personal experience, for example. And Rifat said, yeah, also doing a lot of this as well. So yeah, I think we're all thinking about how to reframe and scaffold those assignments in a different way. Welcome back, Karan.
I'm so sorry. All right. So to continue, I have a lot of low stakes assessment that are embedded in my course. Those are quizzes that are in the current iteration of my course. I have 9 quizzes during the semester. So these were ideal low stakes opportunities to include the use of AI. I would have the students do the quizzes by themselves first, and then after the quiz was done, it would be graded, they would get whatever they got, then they would go back and feed in those questions into ChatGPT, and then they would fill out a checklist stating what they got correct and what they used ChatGPT to correct, and questions that they now understand because they used the AI tool, and questions that the AI tool maybe could not explain to them properly or perhaps did incorrectly. The whole idea behind this was to get them to interact with ChatGPT, use it as a learning tool, and then come back with feedback so that maybe we could set up some meetings and identify some deficiencies that they might have perceived that they have that they might need to address. So it was a very simple activity, I thought, and something where I could easily sort of get them involved and sort of interacting with this tool. It has been quite challenging. My response rate this semester has been quite low. I have about 2/3 of the students have at least done it once during the semester. I would say 1/3 of the students have not done it at all, have not gone in and revised their materials. So in an intro level class, it is still proving to be quite challenging to get students to engage. But that is probably less an AI thing and more of a feature, just a characteristic of the student body that we see in these courses. So I am now in the interim between the fall semester and the spring semester. I am going to set about revising not only my material, but also revising what I do and how I talk about AI in the classroom. So instead of doing it once or twice or 3 times during the semester, we're probably going to have to make it more routine. Have it like like a 5-minute class part of every meeting where we discuss what we did, how we do it, and probably have me demonstrate to the students regularly in the class how I am using AI tools to improve my understanding of mathematics. So my feeling is until and unless I make it routine for the students, they're not really going to understand how to use it effectively, and it will remain something that's a little alien to them moving forward. So I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present, and I'm happy to answer questions or have a discussion towards the end of our meeting today. I'm going to give it over to Liz now. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Karan. Okay, just making sure that you're all seeing my screen. Can I just get a thumbs up? Great. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how I am working with AI in first year composition. So I teach at LaGuardia, and I do a lot of teaching of both English 101 and ENA 101. ENA is our course for students who come in and need an accelerated composition course. So we pair a regular English 101 with an additional 3 hours for additional supplemental instruction. So I recognize as we get started that my context is not going to be the context for everyone, because I'm really talking about teaching writing and in an intensive way. So I hope that some of my ideas might translate to your context. And I'm very excited in a little bit when we hear from you and we share all of our ideas together. So my AI and academic integrity work, my BBK project, is situated in a larger 14-hour, 7-lesson unit on AI. My target audience is introductory, English 101 students and English 101 faculty looking for curriculum about AI. And my goal is to help students develop a critical literacy about Gen AI and writing evidence-based essays about Gen AI. And I really want to lean in hard on developing critical literacy. I was participating in chat while Karan was presenting, and I recognize that we are all coming at AI from different places, and that's really important. There is a place and a space for critique. There's a place and a space for co-creating with AI and innovating. But for me, I really feel like it's difficult in this societal moment to talk about AI when my students don't have a critical literacy about what AI is. So in the context of my English 101 class, I have set up lessons about what is AI, how does it work. We do an experiment where we look at AI in action. We look at ethics in AI, issues that have been raised about AI. We look at how AI is being used in society, business, and education. I have a separate unit on AI and academic integrity, and then we look at the future of AI. So this morning, I'm going to zero in on that AI and academic integrity piece. So this is my current practice with respect to AI. And I want to say my current practice because this situation is fluid and changing. AI has been with us predominantly for the last 2 years. Of course, there's a much longer history, but it's really begun to have an impact on the landscape of higher ed over the last 2 years. So in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about the role of having a clear syllabus statement. I'm going to talk a little bit about writing as process. I'm going to talk about treating Gen AI as a non-peer-reviewed source, the role of research notes, and the use of Google Docs and revision history. So those are the specific practices that I'm going to talk about, but they sit alongside the fact that I am relying on disciplinary best practices from my discipline. So for me, that is MLA and 4Cs, who have produced a series of working papers about ways to handle AI in the classroom and in writing. I also make use of in-class, low-stakes, handwritten assignments that can be used for comparison with digital products. I'm also trying to actively demystify Gen AI. I'll talk just a little bit about that this morning. And then I am having students include a full transcript of any Gen AI use, and they are annotating those transcripts if they are using any Gen AI use. So I think where I really want to start is just by saying, I think right now our classrooms are learning labs and we are learning alongside students. As I said, this is a fluid situation. Gen AI is rapidly evolving. And so something that we may take as fact several months ago has already changed. And so this is really creating a situation where we need to kind of evolve alongside AI, and our knowledge needs to continue to evolve. This can be uncomfortable because it puts us in a situation where we often may have to say in the classroom, I don't know. And so I'd like to suggest that it can be really helpful to treat those moments as a co-learning moment with our students because we're not experts in AI, right? Many of us. I mean, some of us might be experts in AI, but I'm certainly not. So it's been really helpful to talk with my students openly about that and to talk about how this is an evolution and we are learning together. But I'm layering on top of that learning together what I know about the best practices in my discipline. So I am treating AI as pedagogy. I'm coming at it from a pedagogical perspective. How can I use this as a teachable moment? AI exists everywhere. My 11-year-old niece has an Apple Watch and she loves to ask Siri about everything. And these are our learners who are coming, right, in the next couple of years. So our students are currently using all kinds of AI, whether they know it or not, and they're relying on it. So how do we lean in and use that as an opportunity to teach, not a gotcha moment? In some of my other work at LaGuardia, I am also one of the writing program administrators for our first year writing program. And I know a lot of faculty are really frustrated and they keep saying, but I just want a Turnitin for AI. And that doesn't exist, right? We know that AI detection tools are pretty poor at this point. And so it's creating a different landscape for us. So I'm really trying to think about AI and academic integrity, not as a gotcha moment, but as a pedagogical moment. And we've been here before, right? I started teaching in CUNY in 2000. And when I came to CUNY, we were learning how to use learning management systems. We were all learning how to use Blackboard. And it was really big. The first 5 years I was at LaGuardia, we were in constant professional development seminars learning how to use Blackboard. I know we're transitioning to Brightspace right now, but we know what a learning management system is now. But the introduction of LMS into the higher ed landscape changed our classrooms a lot. Those of you who were teaching at the start of Google and Wikipedia, we had big crises in higher ed around Google and Wikipedia because it put pressures on the classroom. Social media has put all kinds of pressures on the classroom. COVID put all kinds of pressures on the classroom. So we're just at another one of those inflection points. And so I think we need to think about how we can use what works best, what we know best, and where we need to transition to something a little bit different. Okay. So this is an example. In just a moment, I'm going to show you an example of my current Gen AI policy for English 101. So I situate this at the beginning of the course. So I have my policy on my syllabus, but I'd like to suggest that because students are getting mixed messages about Gen AI in their courses, that your policy should be on your syllabus and also should appear recursively throughout the semester, so that you are reminding students what the policy is in your particular course, whether that's no Gen AI or some Gen AI is allowed. You're reminding them and helping them remember that that's what the rules are for this particular course. In my course at the very beginning of the semester, I have them bring in syllabi from all of the courses that they're taking that semester, and we fill out a chart. And on the chart, we chart what Gen AI use is allowed in each course, or if there is no Gen AI policy, as a reminder to go and ask the professor what the Gen AI policy is, so that students can really keep clear what the rules of engagement are in each class. So I have a pretty clear, just straight up, here is what academically honest use looks like in 101. Here's what academically dishonest use looks like in 101. But more than just laying out the policy, I also explain the policy and I talk with them about my whys. So that they understand it in context. It's not just a blatant, no, you can't do this, or yes, you can do this, but here's how we're going to do this, and this is why. This is my thinking about it. So I think where possible, really helping students understand what the appropriate policy is for your discipline and why, also with thoughts about how it's going to be connected to their future work life. If your discipline is one that is going to, seems like is going to be adapted to AI use, or where AI use will not be appropriate, really helping students think that through. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about Gen AI use and how I talk with students about Gen AI use. So right now, I have come down heavily on the side of Gen AI is a non-peer reviewed source. So I am not treating it any differently in my class as Wikipedia or any source that they would find on the internet. And I am asking them to treat it as a source in that way. So these are I just pulled some slides from my classes. So I tell them this happens as we are beginning the research essay. So this is pretty far into the course, maybe in week 8 or 9. So I tell them that you're going to check and cite any Gen AI usage. And when I say that, it exists in a context where we have already used sources, so they already know that they need to cite their sources. So at this point, up until this point, they have not been allowed to use Gen AI, although we have been talking about Gen AI. We have done some Gen AI experimenting in the course. This is the point when I say, okay, now that you know what Gen AI is, you understand a little bit about how it works. If you want to try and use some Gen AI in your essay, you can do so. But you have to treat it like any other non-peer reviewed source. And then I lean on MLA. So MLA has a series of guidelines about when you cite, how you cite, what are the key elements of MLA citation, and then we look at examples on the MLA site of ways that students have used Gen AI. So this kind of connects to that idea of demystifying ChatGPT. I'm not treating it as if, oh, ChatGPT is going to answer all of my problems when I sit down to write. It's just like any other source. And so we're talking about it in that way, and students are interacting with it in that way. Now, that is something that I think it would be adaptable to many different courses. This particular part of my use of Gen AI and thinking about Gen AI and academic integrity is specific to writing and may not translate well to your course. But I have students keep a working document for every essay that we are writing. And in that working document, they put every single solitary thing that goes into the writing of that essay. From when we are doing research, they keep a log of their research search terms. They keep their research notes. They share their brainstorming, how they are planning the essay, whether they're using a mind map or an outline. So I'm seeing every stage of that essay evolve over time. Also, we're doing this in Google Docs. So with revision history, I can see any moments where big chunks of text have been pasted in that don't seem to have evolved from the thinking that we are seeing on the page. And that then becomes an opportunity for a conversation around where those chunks came from. I also have started using annotated works cited. Previously, that wasn't something that I used in this class, but now I'm asking students to always annotate all of their sources. So that provides the idea that they are responsible for the sources that they're using. If you're interested, we'll be sharing the slides from today. So I have links to the research notes template and the working document template. Students are welcome to make these more individual and to modify them, but this is kind of their starting place if you're interested in that. But the last thing that I wanted to share is an example of how I'm taking something that I used to do and then I've modified it for AI use. So when I'm teaching the research essay, I have always done a visual activity where I have invited students to highlight a draft. And they use 3 colors, one for their words, one for quotations or paraphrases, and one for citations. So this helps them when we're writing see the balance between where they've used research, where they have used their words to frame an activity, and it also helps us see any information that needs to be cited. Right before we do this activity, I pull anonymous examples from their drafts in a slide presentation, and I give examples of yes and no activities. So if somebody has accidentally plagiarized or there's too much quotation, I show that, and then we show how we could possibly revise and fix that issue in the essay. I've now modified that activity to 4 colors, and we use a 4th color for any information that comes from Gen AI. They then have to go back to that Gen AI transcript, which appears in the working document as an appendix. And they have to compare their draft to the Gen AI to see, did they cite what they took from Gen AI? And did they either directly quote from Gen AI or paraphrase, so that they are making sure that, just as they do with any other source material, that they're responsible for what they've shared. Okay, so I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of how I'm working with AI and academic integrity. Like others in the BBK project, my full BBK project will be available in January of 2025, but I've linked to it here. So when we share the slides, if any of this is useful to you, you are welcome to adapt, use, remix it. It's being released under a Creative Commons license. I just ask for attribution and that it's used for non-commercial use in your classes. I will be revising this based on how it's going this fall. So I have some ideas about some tweaks that I'm going to make, but I'm also going to include in the slideshow how I have made different iterations of the slideshow, so those changes will be clear. All right. Okay, we're going to move to inviting you to share your thoughts, ideas, experiences. So I know chat has been very active. While I was talking, I could see all of the comments coming up. So are there any questions that we want to start off by answering?
Liz, if I can try to synthesize some of the things that are happening in the chat, one of the big ones is a great deal of concern about the use of AI as kind of a substitute for a real cognitive workout. The temptation for students, or maybe for us too, to lean too heavily on these tools in ways that might not translate well to real world critical thinking and decision making challenges. Um, uh, can you talk about that a little bit? Like, again, there's a lot of comments, really thrilled with the models that you've presented about transparency, citation, using Google Docs in this way, rather than gotcha kind of moments, really teaching accounting for the real presence of AI, right? It's that horse is out of the barn, it's here, right? But still a lot of concerns about leaning too heavily on it.
Yeah, so I mean, again, this morning I am focusing on AI and academic integrity. I'm not focusing on the full scope of how I'm working with AI. So I have to say it's very interesting to me. And again, this is my first semester of working with this curriculum that I designed over the summer through the BBK project. But one of the interesting things that happened is that actually very few of my students have chosen to use Gen AI in their research essays. Because as a result of, and again, I'm kind of skimming the comments right now, but as a result of all of the work that we have done on what is AI, how does it work, and what are the ethical issues, a number of my students have taken the stance that they don't want to use Gen AI at all. And we had an entire discussion last week about the fact that they're feeling a lot of pressure about the ways that AI is showing up, and that they're needing to like accept terms and conditions like they do for Apple Music, but they don't want to accept those terms and conditions. So what do they do? So I think one of the things that's happened is that although I've opened up the opportunity to use it, many of them are really thinking about the fact that they're not sure that that's the direction they want to go in. So I think early on, Marcos asked about the use of ethical in the title today. And, the idea is that I think that it's disingenuous to suggest that students are not going to use it. So it's out there. But like anything else, we want to demystify it and we want to provide them with opportunities to critically engage with the landscape around AI so that they can make informed decisions. I don't know. Does that kind of get at what you were asking, Cynthia?
Yeah, I think so. And, more questions may come out of that, right? Because there's been a lot of discussion, so we'll see. Oh, and there are some questions in the Q&A.
Elizabeth, real quick question. It seems to be we're getting messages that people are not able to use the Padlet. Is there a way to make it open to public? There's some couple people in the
Sure, I
chat.
can take care of that if somebody else can answer some questions. Karan, can I hand off to you while I just check out the Padlet?
Yes, you can. I think both questions, unfortunately, Liz, are more directed towards you. My STEM colleagues seem to have fewer questions, which might be the nature of the beast here. But we have a very robust discussion going on in the chat here, and it seems that there are some big concerns around the use of AI, especially in the humanities. We have some English folks who are quite concerned with it.
Okay, I'm going to invite people. Do we want to pull questions up that we want to talk about at this time? Talk about.
So there's one in the Q&A, Liz, if you're ready to answer, I can read it out to you. Jennifer's asking, in addition to policy, will you talk about an ethical way to detect its use and respond to those who misuse it per whatever policy a teacher is using?
Yeah, so I think, Jennifer, that's really hard. That's a great question, but I think in the first round of Gen AI, so let's say January a year ago, there were some elementary AI detection tools, but those AI has quickly outsmarted those tools. So that is why I'm suggesting, like in my own classroom, the way that I'm going at it is really by focusing on this process so that I'm hoping to catch it as I am seeing it unfold in their essays. And the way that I am addressing it is that I'm inviting students into a conversation privately in my office, not in front of the class, where we're talking about, so it feels like there's some Gen AI use here. And I point out where I see moments about that seem like AI, but I'm also doing that in the larger class. So, for example, a regular thing that we do in my class is I will share model essays with students. So perhaps in a model essay, I will show a student essay and then show an example of an AI generated essay and point out the red flags in the AI generated essay. So I think that those are some ways, but there's not there's no absolute guarantee that you're going to catch AI. But there are some red flag moments around vocabulary, around structure, around hallucinated citations, around the impersonal way that AI deals with like personal experiences. So I think those are some early hallmarks that we're seeing in AI generated writing.
Liz,
It's
there's another
very-
question in the Q&A. Jeff, if I may, I'm going to paraphrase more succinctly the question. Someone asks, as educators, why would we simply not reject generative AI? And in the context of a source that hallucinates, right? So, a very clear question about if generative AI can produce, unfactual, unverifiable, or hallucinated content, why do we invite it into the classroom at all?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Jeff. And my response to that is that if you do not want to invite it into the classroom at all, you do not need to. This is not about like trying to get everybody to use AI. It's about thinking about how AI exists in the world that we're currently living in. So for me, my area is teaching with technology. And throughout my career, I have really been focused on how technology influences writing. So this is right in my wheelhouse. I love talking about this stuff. And I want students to be critically aware of what they're doing when they use Gen AI. Yes, I want them to be aware that there are ethical issues with the use of images, that there are ethical issues with the use of writers' text being used to train AI. I want them to be aware that every time they input information into AI, they are potentially, if they did not read the terms of service agreement, contributing their work to the training material for that Gen AI, right? But if they don't know that and they're just using Gen AI anyway, I feel like I have not fulfilled my obligation around helping them think and develop a critical literacy around AI. Again, it's fluid, it's evolving, it's new, but what do we know? And based on what we know right now, how do we want to counsel students into thinking about that in relationship to their text? So I fully support a classroom where you are rejecting generative AI and you are developing a critical literacy. Students need to be developing a complex and sustained relationship to information about Gen AI. And honestly, I think we never did that around the internet. Right? There were pockets where we did it around the internet, but many students don't have a critical literacy about the internet. So, I mean, in the best of all worlds, we would be collaborating with our K through 12 colleagues in thinking about what a K through university critical literacy curriculum looked like for digital literacy, the internet, and AI. But that's not happening. We're kind of putting it together piecemeal right now. Jeff, I don't know if that answered your question. I would love to know if that did answer your question.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you. Yeah, that helps.
Sorry to interrupt the Q&A. So the Padlet, currently it's set up in a way we can't respond to the prompts. So if you can open it, that'll be great.
Maybe
Liz is
Karan, if
checking.
you could field some of the math questions while I do that, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Liz is checking on the Padlet. Karen, there are some questions in the Q&A that are specifically about math. If you could give some examples of how you use it and share with students. And in math, how do we try to get students to use AI to support real learning and understanding, not just answer getting?
So yeah, I mean, both are really important questions. Maybe if I can start with the second question, actually, how do we get students to use AI to support real learning and understanding and not just for answer getting? I think it's a really tough question because especially in math, especially in very sort of dry math fields, when I say dry, I mean, very sort of one single correct answer type of course, like college algebra is, there's a right answer and the other answers are incorrect. AI tools are pretty good and have been very good at solving such problems for a long time, longer than ChatGPT has been around. So math instructors, if there are others here, they will agree with me that we've been dealing with this issue for a while. So the way that I feel like I'm trying to address that is to make it part of the learning process, in the sense that I bring it into my own classroom, tell students how I can use that tool to really further my understanding. If I have, for example, if I'm faced with a new concept and I'm trying to solve a given question, I try to do it on my own, I have a certain solution. It has to first start with me doing something on my own. Then I can go outside for the help and see, okay, how does this machine do it? And then I can compare and contrast and see whether I really understand what's happening. If I do understand what's happening and I get what's being done is the correct thing and I really know it, great. But more often than not, it's going to be that students find some discrepancies between what they've done and what the system has shown them, I would like to use those as opportunities to have conversations with students and bring them to me and set up meetings with them and talk about the concepts where they're having difficulties. That's essentially my idea, that I want to make it a reasonable interaction rather than saying, oh no, you just cannot do it, because it's not something that's going away. It's here, it's staying, and I want to make use of it as best I can. I hope that addresses part of the question at least.
Another theme that's coming out in the chat seems to be that many instructors are finding that their students are going to be using generative AI tools, whether they want them to or not, right? Or whether they have assigned it, and that's a concern that raises some of the cheating concerns and so on. But there are other voices who are saying that when they ask their students, that there are students who are saying that they've never used a generative AI tool, that they haven't, that they don't have or have not sought access. So the question is there any data about CUNY students or CUNY instructors using AI for their classes? Do we have a big picture of what's going on? And I think not completely unrelated to this question is another thing that has come up several times is how do we deal with implicit bias in the material that generative AI tools can produce? Anyway.
So as far as I know, I don't think the data have been collected across CUNY. I'm just thinking of it right now. I'm sure that there's an opportunity here to do some research to gather this very, very important data. I think that question is an excellent question. And we definitely need to know how students are using it, how often students are using it, what the characteristics of students are that are and are not using it. And so that's what we're here for, right? We're trying to figure out how much and how to incorporate it into our curricula. But I am not aware of any solid data that we have across CUNY as regards the use by students. There's another question in here about, I'm sorry, I'm reading it on the fly here. Karan, would you consider adding to your policy a statement clarifying that your use and policy does not pertain to any other course they may take, is not a broad holistic reflection of AI generally, and should not be applied to any other course, perhaps especially not in the humanities? Jennifer, that's a very good point. I must admit, I have not thought about it at all, but that is certainly something that I would consider adding to my policy statement. I definitely have no experience in the humanities, and I make no pretenses that I understand how the use of AI impacts your fields. So that is I would definitely agree that that's a very important point. Something to keep in mind there. Liz?
Yeah, I wanted to respond to Rafat. You asked about to what extent am I explaining the basics of machine learning? I am not explaining the basics of machine learning. My PhD is in American literature, and I wrote my dissertation on post-protease AIDS poetry. So I am not an expert in machine learning. However, I am using a series of videos that explain machine learning, I think, in a pretty accessible way. So I would say we are talking about the very basics of how machine learning works, how AIs are trained, but it's at a very elementary level. And I also see that you asked about Gen AI in asynchronous courses. Yes, I think that we have a huge issue with asynchronous courses, and we have not even begun to really think about how, frankly, our asynchronous courses should be transformed in an era of AI. so that we make sure that students are actually learning. There are lots of ways that that can be done, I think. I think there's a lot of room for experimentation there, but that's a big concern. And it's one that we're definitely not tackling university-wide right now. Yeah, and I see that. Yeah, and there's a big push for more and more courses. Although I do think it's interesting, and this is anecdotal, but we're in the middle of a writing program PPR, and so we surveyed our students, and we asked students, and we have students in online async, online sync, in-person classes, and hybrid, all and HighFlex. So 5 modalities. And so far, the surveys that have come back, students have overwhelmingly said that they are most interested in in-person courses because they feel like that's where they are learning the most. And I was really surprised by that because I was expecting them to say that they preferred online courses because of the flexibility that it offered them, and that was not the case. So that's anecdotal, but I do think that there are some students who are really thinking about what the in-person learning landscape looks like, and they're maybe not as satisfied with some of the async courses.
I'm just wondering if we left any question unanswered here.
I'm sure we have. If we have left a question unanswered that you would like us to comment on, could you please repost it in chat? Because the chat is extensive, but we're all sharing our experiences. So perhaps you don't need to hear from me and Karan on each of these questions, but we're happy to answer questions that you would like us to respond to. I do say Anna said that there are many differences across undergrad and grad. For sure, that's really true. And how we're handling this in grad and undergrad, I think is very different. Again, my work is really focused on introductory level students. And so really developing that baseline.
Is it possible to, sorry. I was going to say, can we unmute or do you want us to just use the chat?
Please unmute. Earlier.
I would love that. I was gone in the beginning. Okay, I'm on my phone because I had a meeting before and somewhere else. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to go back to this async course thing. And it's not just async, right? So I think when you said we're not dealing with it, I mean, I think that is a huge understatement in the sense that I'm here at Baruch, but I hear this from others as well across CUNY through like the faculty senate and stuff. I think for accessibility reasons, for all these good reasons, there's QC online. This stuff has been pushed down for the past couple of years before generative AI was like massively, available to the public. But I think that I would love these surveys. CTL here tried to do a survey. They did a survey, excuse me. They didn't try to, they did one, just the sample size is so small. Okay, I won't give details because they haven't shared in the public. I mean, I've read the report, but like it's too tiny. We have 20,000 students. They got like very few. So I think to me, the main issues are, pen and paper, someone just put in the chat, like they go have their students do it. There's one, like the academic integrity issue. There's the academic standards issue. There's the issue of how we can get them to be intrinsically motivated, depending on, again, undergraduates, graduates, all this different, right, stuff. And when I had put that thing about the differences, I was actually speaking to the asynchronous differences and like whether students want to be in person or not, and the pressures that a lot of colleges face in terms of enrollment. Because one thing is like, if you survey students after, these are again, totally anecdotal, people just like survey in their classes, right? So they get like 10, 20, 50 people, whatever. So they're surveying those students. And after students have been here, they're like, oh, I loved the online, I love the in-person stuff, blah, 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 right? But if you ask them the next question, would you have come to this program if it were fully on in person? And our grad students are like, no, I wouldn't. So it's like that tension between, the pressure on enrollment and giving the flexibility, and then just knowing whether or not the students you have in front of you or online or whatever are actually meeting those academic, the learning goals. And so I'm not sure how we can have asynchronous courses going on throughout the university where we don't know what, we just are, each faculty member or adjunct faculty member are just expected ourselves to go through and guess or not whether or not our students are actually learning the material. I think it's like really challenging.
I agree with that, Anna. I do want to say, however, we do have some measure of control, right? We built that into our current PPR. So we're actually analyzing student work from all 5 of our modalities to see how it compares. And so I think all of us need to do that. I mean, part of the problem is, right, that our systems are Byzantine and the needs are immediate. So sometimes like the research is taking longer than the immediate answer. But I want to have some concrete data for that for our writing program this spring, we will be spending the winter looking at that. So I think that is something that we should all be looking at in all of our programs and then making modifications where needed. So I think that's really important. Thank you for raising that and your experiences with that. Cynthia?
Yeah, sadly we're running out of time. There are several areas that have come up. I wish that we could bring up all the questions, and I'm afraid we probably only have time for one more. And I'm going to take this one. There's a question of instructor labor, and I think that this is directed at Liz. Because of what you've shown is in developing very transparent assignments where students are using Google Docs and so on. Is it taking you a lot more time than it used to grade these assignments and to give productive rounds of feedback? And class size may matter here. So how about the labor question?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm teaching a composition class. My class size is small. So I have a maximum of 25 students in a section. And so I do think that matters. If you're teaching a large lecture course, the kind of strategies that I'm using, maybe 1 or 2 of them might be helpful, but you're not going to grade 500 essays in the way that I'm grading 25. But definitely it does take more time. However, I'm using things like the highlighting exercise that I shared with you, so that students are also annotating and showing me what they're doing, which saves me a little time when I'm grading. And some of it we also do in class. So it's happening in real time as well. But absolutely it's taking more time.
Karan, any follow-up on that? Your experience in different class modalities or sizes?
I'm sorry, I was busy answering a question in the chat.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry, could you I'll do it quickly. If you could just quickly repeat the question.
Oh, no, there was a question about labor, about instructor labor, that has incorporating AI into your assignments increased
It
your...
has, yes. So I cannot comment on different modalities, but I can comment on my current class, which is actually hybrid. It meets in person, and some of the work is done asynchronously. I am doing more work. To be very, very honest, it is more work. I'm having to go through more student artifacts. I'm having to it has led to more for some students to more questioning, to more meeting time. So I am doing more work, but I have to say that aspect is actually very rewarding. Now,
Wonderful.
the question could be asked: what if you had 90% of the class participating and asking you those questions and asking for those meetings? Well, my answer is I don't know, but that's probably what we should be aiming for, and then we can take it from there. But yes, it is
Wonderful.
certainly increased my workload. But I'm not at all complaining about that.
Thank you for that frank answer. I'm afraid that we have to draw to a close, though. So I will say on behalf of CUNY Faculty Affairs, thanks to all of the participants for joining us today. We will be, please don't leave yet, because we'll be sharing a survey that we invite you to complete. Your responses really help us plan future events. I want to say thanks to the members of the terrific CETA team that I'm happy to call my colleagues who are here today. Mari, Elena, Alessandra, Dominique, Diana. If I've missed anyone, because I didn't see that you were in the participants, I apologize so much. Thanks to Amanda, Steve, and Allison for supporting this event with ASL and captioning. And please mark your calendars for our spring sessions. February 21st, March 21st, and April 25th.
Could you check the link to the form, Cynthia? I think it's not working.
Uh-oh.
I'm doing it. Okay. So sorry.
Elena,
everyone.
can you help?
I am checking the setting. I'm really sorry, everyone. Okay. So.
Mari, there's an R missing at the end. I think that's all there is.
Oh. Okay.
The QR code works, I'm hearing. If you can snap a picture of that for anybody who's trying to do the survey right now, or grab that QR code so you could do a little bit later.
Yes.
Yeah, now the link
The
works.
link works.
Yeah.
So sorry about that, everyone. Oi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. And thanks for the great, robust discussion.
Thanks.
And thank
you
you
everyone
again
for coming.
to Karan and Liz for amazing sessions. There are so many thank yous in the chat. Great seeing you, everyone. Thank you for your contributions. This is an amazing community. Let me put the survey chat again in the chat.